Belarus. Belarus, officially the Republic of Belarus, formerly known by its Russian name Byelorussia or Belorussia, is a landlocked country in Eastern Europe bordered by Russia to the northeast, Ukraine to the south, Poland to the west, and Lithuania and Latvia to the northwest. Its capital and the most populous city are Minsk. Over 40% of its 207,600 square kilometers, 80,200 square miles, is forested. Its major economic sectors are service industries and manufacturing. Until the 20th century, different states at various times controlled the lands of modern-day Belarus, including the Principality of Polotsk 11th to 14th centuries, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and the Russian Empire. In the aftermath of the 1917 Russian Revolution, Belarus declared independence as the Belarusian People's Republic, which was conquered by Soviet Russia. The Socialist Soviet Republic of Byelorussia became a founding constituent republic of the Soviet Union in 1922 and was renamed as the Byelorussian Soviet Socialist Republic Byelorussian SSR. Belarus lost almost half of its territory to Poland after the Polish-Soviet War of 1919 to 1921. Much of the borders of Belarus took their modern shape in 1939, when some lands of the Second Polish Republic were reintegrated into it after the Soviet invasion of Poland and were finalized after World War II. During World War II, military operations devastated Belarus, which lost about a quarter of its population and half of its economic resources. The republic was redeveloped in the post-war years. In 1945, the Byelorussian SSR became a founding member of the United Nations, along with the Soviet Union and the Ukrainian SSR. The Parliament of the Republic proclaimed the sovereignty of Belarus on 27 July 1990, and during the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Belarus declared independence on 25 August 1991. Alexander Lukashenko has served as the country's first president since 1994. Belarus has been labeled Europe's last dictatorship by some Western journalists, on account of Lukashenko's self-described authoritarian style of government. Lukashenko continued a number of Soviet-era policies, such as state ownership of large sections of the economy. Elections under Lukashenko's rule have been widely criticized as unfair, and according to many countries and organizations, political opposition has been violently suppressed. Belarus is also the last country in Europe using the death penalty. Belarus's democracy index rating is the lowest in Europe. The country is labeled as not free by Freedom House, as repressed in the Index of Economic Freedom, and is rated as by far the worst country for press freedom in Europe in the 2013-14 Press Freedom Index published by Reporters Without Borders, which ranks Belarus 157th out of 180 nations. In 2000, Belarus and Russia signed a treaty for greater cooperation, forming the Union State. Over 70% of Belarus's population of 9.49 million reside in urban areas. More than 80% of the population is ethnic Belarusian, with sizable minorities of Russians, Poles, and Ukrainians. Since a referendum in 1995, the country has had two official languages, Belarusian and Russian. The Constitution of Belarus does not declare any official religion, although the primary religion in the country is Eastern Orthodox Christianity. The second most widespread religion, Roman Catholicism, has a much smaller following. Nevertheless, Belarus celebrates both Orthodox and Catholic versions of Christmas and Easter as national holidays. Belarus is a member of the United Nations since its founding, the Commonwealth of Independent States, CSTO, EEU, and the Non-Aligned Movement. Belarus has shown no aspirations for joining the European Union but nevertheless maintains a bilateral relationship with the organization, and likewise participates in two EU projects, the Eastern Partnership and the Baku Initiative. Etymology of Belarus. The name Belarus is closely related with the term Belaya Rus, i.e., White Rus. There are several claims to the origin of the name White Rus. An ethno-religious theory suggests that the name used to describe the part of old Ruthenian lands within the Grand Duchy of Lithuania that had been populated mostly by Slavs who had been Christianized early, as opposed to Black Ruthenia, which was predominantly inhabited by pagan Balts. An alternate explanation for the name comments on the white clothing worn by the local Slavic population. A third theory suggests that the Old Rus lands that were not conquered by the Tatars, i.e., Polotsk, Vitebsk, and Mogilev, had been referred to as White Rus. The name Rus is often conflated with its Latin forms Russia and Ruthenia, thus Belarus is often referred to as White Russia or White Ruthenia. The name first appeared in German and Latin medieval literature. The Chronicles of Jan of Zarnko mention the imprisonment of Lithuanian Grand Duke Jogaila and his mother at Albae Russiae, Polaks Dicto, in 1381. In some languages, including German, Afrikaans, and Dutch, the country is generally called White Russia to this day, Weißrussland and Wit-Russland respectively. The Latin term Alba Russia was used again by Pope Pius VI in 1783 to recognize the Society of Jesus there, exclaiming, Approbo Societatem Jesu in Alba Russia Digentum, approbo, approbo. The first known use of White Russia to refer to Belarus was in the late 16th century by Englishman Sir Jerome Horsey, who was known for his close contacts with the Russian royal court. During the 17th century, the Russian Tsars used White Rus to describe the lands added from the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. The term Belorussia means first rose in the days of the Russian Empire, and the Russian Tsar was usually styled the Tsar of all the Russias, as Russia or the Russian Empire was formed by three parts of Russia: the Great, Little, and White. This asserted that the territories are all Russian and all the peoples are also Russian. In the case of the Belarusians, they were variants of the Russian people. After the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, the term White Russia caused some confusion, as it was also the name of the military force that opposed the Red Bolsheviks. During the period of the Byelorussian SSR, the term Byelorussia was embraced as part of national consciousness. In western Belarus under Polish control, Byelorussia became commonly used in the regions of Bialystok and Grodno during the interwar period. The term Byelorussia, its names in other languages such as English being based on the Russian form, was only used officially until 1991 when the Supreme Soviet of the Byelorussian SSR decreed by law that the newly independent republic should be called Republic of Belarus and that its abridged form should be Belarus. The law decreed that all the forms of the new term should be transliterated into other languages from their Belarusian language forms. The use of Byelorussian SSR and any abbreviations thereof were allowed from 1991 to 1993. Conservative forces in the newly independent Belarus did not support the name change and opposed its inclusion in the 1991 draft of the Constitution of Belarus. Accordingly, the name Byelorussia was replaced by Belarus in English. Likewise, the adjective Belarusian or Byelorussian was replaced by Belarusian in English. Belarusian is closer to the original Belarusian term of Bieloruski. Belarusian intelligentsia in the Stalin era attempted to change the name from Byelorussia to a form of Kryvia because of the supposed connection with Russia. Some nationalists object to the name for the same reason. Several local newspapers kept the old name of the country in Russian in their names, for example, Komsomolskaya Pravda v Byelorussia, which is the localized publication of a popular Russian newspaper. Also, those who wish for Belarus to be reunited with Russia continue to use Belorussia. Officially, the full name of the country is the Republic of Belarus, Respublika Belarus. History of Belarus. From 5000 to 2000 BC, banned ceramic cultures predominated. In addition, remains from the Dniepr-Donetsk culture were found in Belarus and parts of Ukraine. Sumerians and other pastoralists roamed through the area by 1000 BC, and by 500 AD, Slavs had taken up residence, which was circumscribed by the Scythians who roamed its outskirts. Invaders from Asia, among whom were the Huns and Avars, swept through c. 400 to 600 AD, but were unable to dislodge the Slavic presence. The region that is now Belarus was first settled by Baltic tribes in the 3rd century. Around the 5th century, the area was taken over by Slavic tribes. The takeover was partially due to the lack of military coordination of the Balts, but the gradual assimilation of the Balts into Slavic culture was peaceful in nature. In the 9th century, the territory of modern Belarus became part of Kievan Rus, a vast East Slavic state ruled by the Rurikid dynasty. Upon the death of Kievan Rus ruler Yaroslav I the Wise, the state split into independent principalities. Many early Rus principalities were virtually razed or severely affected by a major Mongol invasion in the 13th century, but the lands of modern Belarus avoided the brunt of the invasion and eventually joined the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. There are no sources of military seizure, but the annals affirm the alliance and united foreign policy of Polotsk and Lithuania for decades. For example, the Chronicle of Novgorod informs about Izyaslav had been set to be Nyas in Luki and covered Novgorod from the Lithuanians in 1198 when Luki is situated on the east from Polotsk. Incorporation into the Grand Duchy of Lithuania resulted in an economic, political and ethno-cultural unification of Belarusian lands. Of the principalities held by the duchy, 9 of them were settled by a population that would eventually become Belarusian people. During this time, the duchy was involved in several military campaigns, including fighting on the side of Poland against the Teutonic Knights at the Battle of Grunwald in 1410. The joint victory allowed the duchy to control the northwestern borderlands of Eastern Europe. The Muscovites, led by Ivan III of Moscow, began military campaigns in 1486 in an attempt to incorporate the lands of Kievan Rus, specifically the territories of modern Belarus, Russia and Ukraine. Independence of Belarus. In March 1990, elections for seats in the Supreme Soviet of the Byelorussian SSR took place. Though the pro-independence Belarusian Popular Front took only 10% of the seats, the populace was content with the selection of the delegates. Belarus declared itself sovereign on 27 July 1990 by issuing the Declaration of State Sovereignty of the Belarusian Soviet Socialist Republic. With the support of the Communist Party, the country's name was changed to the Republic of Belarus on 25 August 1991. Stanislav Shushkevich, the chairman of the Supreme Soviet of Belarus, met with Boris Yeltsin of Russia and Leonid Kravchuk of Ukraine on 8 December 1991 in Beloveskaya Pushcha to formally declare the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the formation of the Commonwealth of Independent States. A national constitution was adopted in March 1994 in which the functions of the Prime Minister were given to the President of Belarus. Geography and climate of Belarus. Belarus lies between latitudes 51 degrees and 57 degrees north, and longitudes 23 degrees and 33 degrees east. Its extension from north to south is 560 kilometers (350 miles), from west to east is 650 kilometers (400 miles). It is landlocked, relatively flat, and contains large tracts of marshy land. About 40% of Belarus is covered by forests. Many streams and 11,000 lakes are found in Belarus. 3 major rivers run through the country, the Neman, the Pripyat, and the Dnieper. The Neman flows westward towards the Baltic Sea and the Pripyat flows eastward to the Dnieper. The Dnieper flows southward towards the Black Sea. The highest point is Zyarzhainskaya Hara Zyarzhainsk Hill at 345 meters (1,132 feet), and the lowest point is on the Neman River at 90 meters (295 feet). The average elevation of Belarus is 160 meters (525 feet) above sea level. The climate features mild to cold winters, with average January minimum temperatures ranging from -4 degrees Celsius (24.8 degrees Fahrenheit) in the southwest, Brest, to -8 degrees Celsius (17.6 degrees Fahrenheit) in the northeast, Vitebsk, and cool and moist summers with an average temperature of 18 degrees Celsius (64.4 degrees Fahrenheit). Belarus has an average annual rainfall of 550 to 700 mm (21.7 to 27.6 in). The country is in the transitional zone between continental climates and maritime climates. Natural resources include peat deposits, small quantities of oil and natural gas, granite, dolomite, limestone, marl, chalk, sand, gravel, and clay. About 70% of the radiation from neighboring Ukraine's 1986 Chernobyl nuclear disaster entered Belarusian territory, and about a fifth of Belarusian land, principally farmland and forests in the southeastern regions, was affected by radiation fallout. The United Nations and other agencies have aimed to reduce the level of radiation in affected areas, especially through the use of cesium binders and rapeseed cultivation, which are meant to decrease soil levels of cesium-137. Belarus borders 5 countries: Latvia to the north, Lithuania to the northwest, Poland to the west, Russia to the north and the east, and Ukraine to the south. Treaties in 1995 and 1996 demarcated Belarus's borders with Latvia and Lithuania, and Belarus ratified a 1997 treaty establishing the Belarus-Ukraine border in 2009. Belarus and Lithuania ratified final border demarcation documents in February 2007. Governance of Belarus. Belarus is a presidential republic, governed by a president and the National Assembly. The term for each presidency is 5 years. Under the 1994 constitution, the president could serve only 2 terms as president, but a change in the constitution in 2004 eliminated term limits. Alexander Lukashenko has been the president of Belarus since 1994. In 1996, Lukashenko called for a controversial vote to extend the presidential term from 5 to 7 years, and as a result, the election that was supposed to occur in 1999 was pushed back to 2001. The referendum on the extension was denounced as a fantastic fake by the chief electoral officer, Viktor Hanchar, who was removed from the office for official matters only during the campaign. The National Assembly is a bicameral parliament comprising the 110-member House of Representatives, the lower house, and the 64-member Council of the Republic, the upper house. The House of Representatives has the power to appoint the Prime Minister, make constitutional amendments, call for a vote of confidence on the Prime Minister, and make suggestions on foreign and domestic policy. The Council of the Republic has the power to select various government officials, conduct an impeachment trial of the president, and accept or reject the bills passed by the House of Representatives. Each chamber has the ability to veto any law passed by local officials if it is contrary to the Constitution. The government includes a council of ministers, headed by the Prime Minister and 5 deputy prime ministers. The members of this council need not be members of the legislature and are appointed by the president. The judiciary comprises the Supreme Court and specialized courts such as the Constitutional Court, which deals with specific issues related to constitutional and business law. The judges of national courts are appointed by the president and confirmed by the Council of the Republic. For criminal cases, the highest court of appeal is the Supreme Court. The Belarusian constitution forbids the use of special extrajudicial courts. In the 2012 parliamentary election, 105 of the 110 members elected to the House of Representatives were not affiliated with any political party. The Communist Party of Belarus won 3 seats, and the Agrarian Party and Republican Party of Labor and Justice won each. Most non-partisans represent a wide scope of social organizations such as workers' collectives, public associations, and civil society organizations, similar to the composition of the Soviet legislature. Corruption in Belarus. The judicial system in Belarus lacks independence and is subject to political interference. Corrupt practices such as bribery often took place during tender processes, and whistleblower protection and national ombudsman are lacking in Belarus's anti-corruption system. However, there is a political will to fight against corruption in the government, and the government has made some progress in combating corruption, such as minimizing tax regulations in order to improve transparency in the tax office. Military in Belarus. Major General Andrei Ravkov heads the Ministry of Defense, and Alexander Lukashenko, as president, serves as commander-in-chief. The armed forces were formed in 1992 using parts of the former Soviet armed forces on the new republic's territory. The transformation of the ex-Soviet forces into the Armed Forces of Belarus, which was completed in 1997, reduced the number of its soldiers by 30,000 and restructured its leadership and military formations. Most of Belarus's service members are conscripts, who serve for 12 months if they have higher education or 18 months if they do not. Demographic decreases in the Belarusians of conscription age have increased the importance of contract soldiers, who numbered 12,000 in 2001. In 2005, about 1.4% of Belarus's gross domestic product was devoted to military expenditure. Belarus has not expressed a desire to join NATO but has participated in the Individual Partnership Program since 1997, and Belarus provides refueling and airspace support for the ISAF mission in Afghanistan. Belarus first began to cooperate with NATO upon signing documents to participate in their Partnership for Peace program in 1995. However, Belarus cannot join NATO because it is a member of the Collective Security Treaty Organization. Tensions between NATO and Belarus peaked after the March 2006 presidential election in Belarus. Demographics of Belarus. According to the National Statistical Committee, as of January 2016, the population is 9.49 million. Ethnic Belarusians constitute 83.7% of Belarus's total population. The next largest ethnic groups are Russians 8.3%, Poles 3.1%, and Ukrainians 1.7%. Belarus has a population density of about 50 people per square kilometre, 127 per square miles. 70% of its total population is concentrated in urban areas. Minsk, the nation's capital and largest city, was home to 1,937,900 residents in 2015. Gomel, with a population of 481,000, is the second largest city and serves as the capital of the Homyel Voblast. Other large cities are Mogilev 365,100, Vitebsk 342,400, Rodna 314,800, and Brest 298,300. Like many other Eastern European countries, Belarus has a negative population growth rate and a negative natural growth rate. In 2007, Belarus's population declined by 0.41% and its fertility rate was 1.22, well below the replacement rate. Its net migration rate is plus 0.38 per 1,000, indicating that Belarus experiences slightly more immigration than emigration. As of 2015, 69.9% of Belarus's population is aged 14 to 64, 15.5% is under 14, and 14.6% is 65 or older. Its population is also aging. The median age of 30 to 34 is estimated to rise to between 60 and 64 in 2050. There are about 0.87 males per female in Belarus. The average life expectancy is 72.15, 66.53 years for men and 78.1 years for women. Over 99% of Belarusians aged 15 and older are literate. Languages in Belarus. Belarus's two official languages are Russian and Belarusian. Russian is the most common language used at home, used by 70% of the population, while Belarusian, the official first language, is spoken at home by 23%. Minorities also speak Polish, Ukrainian and Eastern Yiddish. Belarusian, although not as widely used as Russian, is the mother tongue of 53.2% of the population, whereas Russian is the mother tongue of only 41.5%. Culture in Belarus. The Belarusian government sponsors annual cultural festivals such as the Slaviansky Bazaar in Vitebsk, which showcases Belarusian performers, artists, writers, musicians, and actors. Several state holidays, such as Independence Day and Victory Day, draw big crowds and often include displays such as fireworks and military parades, especially in Vitebsk and Minsk. The government's Ministry of Culture finances events promoting Belarusian arts and culture both inside and outside the country. Belarusian literature began with 11th to 13th century religious scripture, such as the 12th century poetry of Cyril of Tura. By the 16th century, Polotsk resident Francisc Scarina translated the Bible into Belarusian. It was published in Prague and Vilnius sometime between 1517 and 1525, making it the first book printed in Belarus or anywhere in Eastern Europe. The modern era of Belarusian literature began in the late 19th century. One prominent writer was Janka Kupala. Many Belarusian writers of the time, such as Vladimir Zilka, Kazimir Svayak, Jakub Kolis, Zmitrak Biadula, and Maxim Heretsky, wrote for Nasha Niva, a Belarusian language paper published that was previously published in Vilnius but now is published in Minsk. After Belarus was incorporated into the Soviet Union, the Soviet government took control of the republic's cultural affairs. At first, a policy of Belarusianization was followed in the newly formed Byelorussian SSR. This policy was reversed in the 1930s, and the majority of prominent Belarusian intellectuals and nationalist advocates were either exiled or killed in Stalinist purges. The free development of literature occurred only in Polish-held territory until the Soviet occupation in 1939. Several poets and authors went into exile after the Nazi occupation of Belarus and would not return until the 1960s. The last major revival of Belarusian literature occurred in the 1960s with novels published by Wasyl Bajkow and Władimir Korotkevich. An influential author who devoted his work to awakening the awareness of the catastrophes the country has suffered was Ales Adamovich. He was named by Svetlana Alexievich, the Belarusian winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature 2015, as her main teacher, who helped her to find a path of her own. Music in Belarus largely comprises a rich tradition of folk and religious music. The country's folk music traditions can be traced back to the times of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. In the 19th century, Polish composer Stanislaw Moniuszko composed operas and chamber music pieces while living in Minsk. During his stay, he worked with Belarusian poet Vincent Dunin-Marcinkiewicz and created the opera Syalanka Peasant Woman. At the end of the 19th century, major Belarusian cities formed their own opera and ballet companies. The ballet Nightingale by M. Kroshner was composed during the Soviet era and became the first Belarusian ballet showcased at the National Academic Wieliki Ballet Theatre in Minsk. After the Second World War, music focused on the hardships of the Belarusian people or on those who took up arms in defense of the homeland. During this period, Anatoly Bogatyrev, creator of the opera in Polasy Virgin Forest, served as the tutor of Belarusian composers. The National Academic Theatre of Ballet in Minsk was awarded the Benoist de la Danse Prize in 1996 as the top ballet company in the world. Rock music has become increasingly popular in recent years, though the Belarusian government has attempted to limit the amount of foreign music aired on the radio in favor of traditional Belarusian music. Since 2004, Belarus has been sending artists to the Eurovision Song Contest. Marc Chagall was born in Lyazna, near Vitebsk, in 1887. He spent the World War I years in Soviet Belarus, becoming one of the country's most distinguished artists and a member of the modernist avant-garde, and was a founder of the Vitebsk Arts College. Sports in Belarus. Receiving heavy sponsorship from the government, ice hockey is the nation's second most popular sport after football. The national football team has never qualified for a major tournament, however, Bate Borisov has played in the Champions League. The national hockey team finished fourth at the 2002 Salt Lake City Olympics following a memorable upset win over Sweden in the quarter-finals, and regularly competes in the World Championships, often making the quarter-finals. Numerous Belarusian players are present in the Continental Hockey League in Eurasia, particularly for Belarusian club HC Dynamo Minsk, and several have also played in the National Hockey League in North America. Darya Domrachova is a leading biathlete whose honors include 3 gold medals at the 2014 Winter Olympics. Tennis player Victoria Azarenka became the first Belarusian to win a Grand Slam singles title at the Australian Open in 2012. She also won the gold medal in mixed doubles at the 2012 Summer Olympics with Max Mirny, who holds 10 Grand Slam titles in doubles. Other notable Belarusian sportspeople include cyclist Vasyl Kiryanka, who won the 2015 Road World Time Trial Championship, and middle-distance runner Marina Arzamasova, who won the gold medal in the 800 meters at the 2015 World Championships in athletics. Belarus is also known for its strong rhythmic gymnasts. Noticeable gymnasts include Ina Zhukova, who earned silver at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, Lyubov Charkashina, who earned bronze at the 2012 London Olympics, and Melatina Stanuta, bronze all-around medalist of the 2015 World Championships. The Belarusian senior group earned bronze at the 2012 London Olympics. Andrei Arlovsky, who was born in Babruz, Byelorussian SSR, is a current UFC fighter and the former UFC heavyweight champion of the world. Thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, click on like button. If you want to watch more videos like this, click on the subscription button below, it's free subscription.